if he imposes tariffs, he has threatened to do so against us. And he repeatedly questions India on our tariffs. And in his latest State of the Union message before the US Congress, he once again mentioned India. So he is quite determined to impose what he calls reciprocal tariffs.
There is not a single statement either from Mr. Piyush Goyal or from the government or from Prime Minister's office here. In fact, there is not a single statement on what is India's strategy to combat this. There is no knowing whether this government is going to take the opposition in confidence.
Mr. Vajpayee called me and he said, we will not do anything to surrender before the US as far as sanctions are concerned. We will wait for the day when they will realize their mistake and withdraw the sanctions themselves. And as long as the sanctions were in place, we didn't care about it. We didn't go to the US to say, please, maaf kijiye, boss, please withdraw the sanctions. No, nothing of the kind. Now, I didn't come back and say, danka baj raha hai. So the problem is that we will become victims of our own make-believe world if
drum beating.
This is the whole point.
Yeah.
I mean, you are aware of the fact, I'm aware of the fact that one big Elon Musk in India,
yeah,
you know who that person is.
Yeah.
Policies are tailored to suit his business interests. Yeah. And he first gets the policies in place and then enters that business. Now we have reached a very peculiar situation, Venuji, in our economy, where there is no money anywhere. Yeah. What has happened to all the money?
Hello and welcome to this special discussion on The Wire. The world is talking about nothing but the Trump tariffs and all the policies that Donald Trump is unveiling on a daily basis, and he is shaking up the existing global trade order, economic order, security order, also, if you will. So the key question is, how should India respond to what is coming from the US, from Donald Trump and his cabinet colleagues on a daily basis? How should India prepare for the storm that is coming towards us? April 2nd, Donald Trump has said that he would impose reciprocal tariffs on India, as also on other countries like Canada, Mexico. China has already imposed maybe some more on China, etc. And we have here today to understand exactly what's going on. We have with us former finance minister and former external affairs minister, Mr. Yashwant Sinha, who better to talk about these issues than Mr. Yashwant Sinha, who closely worked with Mr. Vajpayee, Prime Minister Mr. Vajpayee, as also with Mr. Jaswant Singh, who were the leading members of the cabinet making policy those days. And I would like to start by asking straight away, Mr. Yashwant Sinha, how would Vajpayee's cabinet and how would he, along with Vajpayee, would have seen the current situation, and how would he respond to, sir, how would you respond to the way the Modi government is responding to the Trump administration and its daily threats, as it were? Give us your broad take, and then we'll go on to more specific issues, sir.
Trump was inaugurated in office on the 20th of January. We are in the month of March, early March. And in these few weeks, he has shown that it's more like a bull in White House than anything else. So he is acting as the great disruptor. He's disrupting everything.
Yeah.
And whether it's trade, tariffs, relationships, one doesn't know which way US will turn the next week or the next month. His strategic thinking at the moment appears to be leaning towards making things up the uh, with Russia. Nothing wrong in it, but if he sacrifices some long-held interests of the U.S. and the allies of the U.S., then obviously it will not be liked by them.
Yeah.
As far as we are concerned, we have to be on our guard because if he imposes tariffs, he has threatened to do so against us. And he repeatedly questions India on our tariffs.
Yeah.
And in his latest State of the Union message before the US Congress, he once again mentioned India. So he is quite determined to impose what he calls reciprocal tariffs,
Yeah.
which I personally think will damage the US more than anyone else. You asked me for a comparison with Mr. Vajpayee. I'll just give you one example. At the height of the Kargil intrusion, you will remember that the then
Yeah.
President Clinton invited both Nawaz Sharif of Pakistan and Atal Bihari Vajpayee of India to come to Washington for talks. And
Yeah.
Mr. Vajpayee plainly refused to go to Washington. Nawaz Sharif went, but Vajpayee did not.
Yeah.
And he therefore upheld the long held policy of India of strategic autonomy,
Okay.
that we will not be, as far as our national interest, our strategic interests, our security interests are concerned, we will not be beholden to anyone. We will not surrender before anyone. But
So, yeah.
that is not what's happening now. It appears to me that from the day of inauguration of Donald Trump, India has been in a surrender mudra.
Yeah. So, uh, it's interesting you're using the term surrender mudra. You also mentioned strategic autonomy as Prime Minister Vajpayee had very clearly articulated then. Do you think that strategic autonomy is being compromised today? And do you think some telltale signs of that, as some analysts are saying or are talking about, is the way Prime Minister Modi visited the US, and a few hours before his meeting with Trump, uh, Trump Donald Trump announced reciprocal tariffs against India. Now, how do you read that? And as we speak, you yourself said that in a State of the Union address, he again repeated reciprocal tariffs on India. In fact, he talks about India every day without fail. And he did so while Mr. Piyush Goyal, our commerce minister, was there to negotiate a so-called free trade agreement uh, about which we know nothing. There is not a single statement either from Mr. Piyush Goyal or from the government or from Prime Minister's office here. In fact, there is not a single statement on what is India's strategy to combat this. There is no knowing whether this government is going to take the opposition in confidence. Typically, when such an upheaval happens, and in the past, you've been witness to this, whenever crucial, critical decisions uh, had to be taken, say under the WTO, which would have, say, compromised our agriculture sector, for instance, where 60, 70, affecting 60, 70 million people directly or indirectly, poor people, farmers, laborers. Uh, Parliament has been taken into confidence. Now, uh, what is your sense, sir? Do you see that kind of inclusive decision making happening, opposition being taken into confidence, and overall uh, articulation of strategic autonomy in the current situation, in the post Trump 2.0 situation, sir?
I'll give you an example, Venuji. You'll remember the Iraq War,
Yeah.
uh, and we were under great pressure from the US then that we should send our troops or at least a medical team
Yeah.
to Iraq to
Yeah.
help with the wounded.
Yeah.
Now, how did Vajpayee respond? Vajpayee called the leaders of the opposition parties, including Sonia Gandhi, for a discussion.
Yeah.
And he took everyone's opinion. Then he placed the matter before the not only the Cabinet Committee on Security, but before the entire cabinet, where there
Yeah.
was a free discussion on whether we should do it or not. And then finally, since the weight of both public opinion, parliamentary opinion, governmental cabinet opinion was against India getting involved in any manner with the Iraq conflict and with
Yeah.
the US, he we plainly told the US, thank you, but we are not going to send anyone to Iraq. I'm just giving an example to tell you that the long held policy of India of strategic autonomy, one, and two, of carrying the opposition with you, is something which we have upheld all the time.
Yeah.
Now, the prime minister has made a visit. Why did he go rushing to Washington even before Trump had completed 30 days in office? I don't know. It remains a big mystery for me. What did
Yeah.
we achieve out of that visit remains a big mystery for me. But there is a tradition, there is a convention in our parliament that whenever the head of government visits another country, he will, and especially very important country like the US, then there will be a statement either by the prime minister himself or by the foreign minister on the visit before the parliament. Such a statement is made,
Yeah.
and the members so demand, then there will be a debate on such a statement. Now we know that many parliamentary traditions have been thrown to the winds in the last 10 years, including this one. And I don't know whether the opposition is going to insist that there should be a statement from the government. But the plain fact which remains is that we take, for example, another issue. In front of Mr. Modi, Trump said, as far as bilateral trade is concerned, the US was running a deficit of $100 billion with India. Didn't he say that?
Yeah.
Now, the deficit is about 40 billion.
Yeah.
Either Mr. Modi was not briefed about it, or Mr. Modi was not prepared to join issue with Mr. Trump, like many other heads of governments in subsequent visits to the White House have done.
Yeah.
And he just let it pass.
And it was not officially corrected later also by the.
Not even officially corrected. So,
Yeah.
what I am saying is, what I meant by surrender mudra is this, that let it pass, let it pass. This is not the way we should conduct our foreign policy.
Yeah.
We should be able to state our case very clearly before whoever is the interlocutor.
Yeah. So Yashwant Sinha, can you elaborate a little more on what exactly do you mean by the surrender mudra in this case? What has been happening, say, in the last few weeks? Where all is India appearing to surrender? There's also a big controversial statement which came from the Foreign Minister Jaishankar in London yesterday, where he, even before any negotiations have begun or maybe they are ongoing, he bluntly said that there is no unified position on currency multipolarity within BRICS, and then he said India will stand with the US, with a US led financial architecture. Now, was it necessary to say that? Why couldn't he hold that as a bargaining chip? Is a question many analysts are raising. Why did he make such a commitment? Was it a blunder? Now, would this also constitute part of the surrender mudra that you're talking about?
You see, I forgot to mention to you that when Mr. Modi was in the White House,
Yeah,
Trump did talk about BRICS,
yeah.
and he did not talk about it any good way. He criticized BRICS,
No, he said BRICS
and
is dead. He
he
said
said
dead.
BRICS is dead,
Yeah,
and we did not respond to that.
yeah,
We did not join issue with him.
yeah.
So BRICS is dead now, which means that we are prepared to accept whatever US is telling us to accept or do. Uh, Now, you know, as far as the foreign minister is concerned, external affairs minister, the statement that he has made and that you have just now quoted is extremely out of place. And in a long list of concessions which we have been making from the time Trump has been elected as
Yeah,
US president, this is another nail in the coffin. You know, it
yeah.
started, you will recall, with concessions, tariff concessions that we gave in
In the
the
budget.
budget.
Yeah,
First February, we made a number of tariff concessions to please the US. Then Mr. Modi went to Washington, further concessions, further, tolerance for lies. And now we are carrying it forward. I don't know whether India is prepared to even give up on BRICS. Certainly, as far as the common BRICS currency is concerned or payment system is concerned,
yeah.
perhaps we will not raise it in the BRICS anymore or anywhere else. So, to me, it appears as if our surrender before a rampant Trump in White House is complete. We are just not prepared to join issue on any matter with him.
Why do you think? Uh, why do you think this is happening? Uh, what do you think? What do you assume could be India's compulsion to behave in this way? As you said, that Mr. Vajpayee would have uh, during your time, you and Mr. Vajpayee and Mr. Jaswani would have done it very differently. Now, what is the difference? I mean, what's going on? What would Vajpayee have done in this situation?
I'll give you another example. Uh, Before I answer this question, because this answer itself will perhaps answer the question that you have asked. You remember we went for nuclear tests
Yeah,
in May 1998, and then US imposed sanctions on us.
yeah,
I remember Mr. Vajpayee and many other countries had imposed sanctions, but US sanctions were more hurting than others.
yeah,
Mr. Vajpayee called me and he said, "We will not do anything to surrender before the US as far as sanctions are concerned. We will wait for the day when they will realize their mistake and withdraw the sanctions themselves."
okay,
And as long as the sanctions were in place, we didn't care about it. We didn't go to the US to say, please, maaf kijiye, boss, please withdraw the sanctions. No, nothing of the kind.
yeah,
We met the sanctions and the effects of the sanctions frontally. And ultimately, it was President Clinton who made a bilateral visit to India, you'll recall.
yeah,
And, every fallout of the nuclear test that we had done was then um, uh, completely forgotten and eradicated, let's say, and the relationship with the US returned to normal.
yeah,
So, surrender is not the policy which the US is going to appreciate. They
yeah.
will appreciate if you stand up for your interests, if you stand up for your sovereignty, if you stand up for your national interest. That is something which not only they, but the whole world will respect.
So, would you say that China's response in this context is somewhat on the lines of what you're suggesting? When China said,
Absolutely fine.
whatever
Absolutely
war,
fine.
whatever war
Yes.
they want, whether it's a trade war, economic war, or a real war, uh, we are ready for it. That's China's statement.
That
So,
is that is Venuji, after Trump invited President Xi to US for the oath taking for the inauguration, you'll remember.
Yeah.
And we were, we were prepared to give our right hand and our right eye for such an invitation.
Yeah.
So, you know, the whole point is that, and we have to connect it with our domestic policy.
Yeah.
If the government's policy and the prime minister's policy is to prove to Indian audiences that danka baj raha hai, you know, our drum is being beaten all over the world, you will see in the background in which I am sitting here a photograph that I have of my meeting with President Bush in the White House in perhaps January of 2004. Uh, Now I am not boasting, and there was no danka, which was no drum, which was being beaten at that time for India in the world. We didn't make any such claim, but Vajpayee had his own standing amongst the world leaders, and that was the first time that India was really invited to the high tables of the world. Where did he sit when he was invited, where G7 were present? On the
Yeah.
table where all the leaders of G7 used to sit. And I am the only foreign minister of India, before or after, who was invited by the president to meet him in the White House. Now, I didn't come back and said, Danka baj raha hai, Danka baj raha hai. So the problem is that we will become victims of our own make-believe world if
Drum
we
beating.
go like this. This is the whole point. Now, coming back to the issue of why did Modi go rushing to meet Trump in the White House remains a mystery. In fact,
Do you
I'll
think,
tell you,
sir, here, do you think, I want to ask you a question. Do you think the Prime Minister uh, did not anticipate the way Donald Trump, in a in an open press conference, joint press conference before the world, would have insulted India in the way he did? He kept calling India a tariff violator, highest tariffs in the world, hard place to do business. When somebody asked him about what happened in Modi's meeting with Elon Musk, Trump immediately articulated Elon Musk's view, saying that he he's, he finds India to be a very hard place to do business. Uh, these kind of things, are they unprecedented? Have you in your political life seen these kind of things happening before?
no, certainly not with any foreign dignitary. In my own interactions with foreign ministers or ministers of finance in the 6 years that I was in Vajpayee government, or in all the trips that I accompanied Mr. Vajpayee as Prime Minister, I did not come across a single occasion, a single incident where somebody would have talked in this manner about India and that it would not have been met. There were instances. For instance, I remember one particular meeting with the European Union where the then president of the European Union said something in a press conference, and we immediately held a parallel press conference and contradicted what he said. And we told the world media that it was entirely unbecoming of him to have said it after the meeting was over. So, until you meet such challenges frontally, let's face facts. Trump is behaving like a typical bully. And how do you tackle a bully? You tackle a bully by calling his bluff, not by surrendering before him. And
So,
you ask me this. Yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
Nini. So, sir, you talked about how, say, Prime Minister Vajpayee would have dealt with this situation, and one interesting insight you gave was, instead of giving unilateral concessions, he would have waited, shown patience, and waited for the US to realize its mistakes. So, 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 do you think there is still scope for India to do that, or we have already given many concessions and we are going down a rabbit hole uh, in this what you describe as surrender mudra?
No, I think Trump and the US have found out
Yeah,
that we are not in any position to stand up. We are not in any position to call their bluff. We are, for whatever reason, we are not prepared to, uh, even go with the facts which are in our favor and tell them that they are wrong, that this is not the way to behave. But what is it that we are saying? We are not saying anything.
yeah,
You yourself mentioned that so many things have happened over the last few days, weeks, and there's been no response from the Indian government. Why is the
yeah,
Indian government so quiet on every issue?
yeah,
There is absolutely no response.
yeah.
Why? Because there
Mm,
is part of the surrender mudra that we will not respond. You do what you want.
yeah. So there's another very interesting aspect which I was trying to think about, analyze, which is it is very clear that capitalism in the US has reached a point where their big businesses are being openly being promoted by their system. Donald Trump never before has a US president after winning election talked about just one big industrialist as a person who who is a poster boy for that country. The way he praised Musk and the way he is projecting Musk, and of course others. During his inauguration, there was the owner of Amazon, Jeff Bezos. There were others. There was the owner of Facebook. Uh, Now it's very clear that besides tariff, I'll come to tariffs separately. Trump is going to push all these big businesses into India and ask for access, uh, which is already happening. Elon Musk wants to enter the telecom sector in a big way, satellite-based telecom. Electric vehicles, they've already announced a concession uh, on electric vehicles, dropped duties. And it's only a matter of time they'll facilitate Elon Musk. But the political economy, India's political economy, how do you see that responding? Because India also has some big businesses who who will resist and who would not want uh, the American businesses to come and take away market share, uh, in double quick time. So how do you see that uh, panning out? Because Indian big businesses are also the ones who support Modi, and they have a symbiotic relationship with Modi. So how will Prime Minister Modi manage this? I mean, if I'm
Um,
coming across to you this whole problem.
Credit must be given to Trump that
Mm,
he is at least absolutely transparent and open about it.
yeah,
That
mm,
Elon Musk can come and address the whole US cabinet.
yeah, yeah,
You remember
mm,
that scene.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Elon Musk can be his buddy.
yeah,
We do all these things, but we are doing it clandestinely. You are
yeah,
aware of the fact that we have our own Elon Musk in
yeah,
our
yeah,
system,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and the whole world knows about it, but we do it clandestinely. We don't have the courage to do it openly because our system does not permit it. The
yeah,
US system permits it, our system does not.
yeah,
And ever since independence, I would say that any close proximity with big business is something that has been frowned upon
mm,
between the government and the big business.
yeah,
So, uh, public opinion will not put up with this kind of a open association. Though, as I said, clandestine association is there and is pretty well known. Um, Whether it will have any impact on policies or not going forward, I don't know. But so far, it has had impact on our policies. I
yeah,
mean, you are aware of the fact, I'm aware of the fact that one big Elon Musk in India,
yeah,
you know who that person is.
yeah, yeah,
Policies are tailored to suit his business interests. And
Yeah.
he first gets the policies in place and then enters that business. So we are
Yeah.
all doing it openly, but we don't have the courage to show it as openly as Trump is doing with Elon Musk. But to answer your question, will the pushback come from the Indian industry? I'm not so sure, because
Okay.
the Indian industry will look up to the government. And if the
Yeah.
government is prepared to bring down the prices, the tariff on EVs, electric vehicles, from
Yeah.
115% to 15%,
Yeah.
then they have a clear indication that for the government of the day, US interests and US business interests are far more important than their own interests.
Yeah.
So, and the other is that, my experience with industry would suggest that industry does make suggestions, but they don't have the courage to stand up to the government.
Yeah.
They have so many, I don't know, fingers in the pie here and there,
Mhm.
that they don't stand up to the government.
Yeah. You've had that experience, I know.
I
Yeah.
have, yeah, yeah.
So, uh, now coming to the Indian economy as such. Now we just had a budget presented, the second budget of the of Modi government 3.0, and it came against the backdrop of we all know of a slowing economy. Suddenly GDP growth had declined to 5.4% in the October quarter. All the big multinational companies, consumer companies, had started. The CEOs had started saying that consumption, middle class is shrinking, inequalities are increasing. This has been said by people, the CEO of Nestle, CEO of Marico, even Rajiv Bajaj of Bajaj scooters, motorcycles. They've all been saying that that incomes of people, bottom 70% people, is is not growing, and in real terms shrinking, which is also shown by government data. And therefore the government in desperation came up with a consumption boost budget. Now, do you get the sense that this Trump disruption has nullified a lot of what the budget was projecting to do? And the first impact, of course, has been the massive stock market meltdown, which has happened in the last 3-4 weeks. And some $24 billion of net FII outflows have happened in this financial year, 24-25. Mind you, in 2008-9, when the global financial meltdown happened, the outflows were of the order of 14 billion or something. It is so much more than what happened then, when world markets had collapsed. So there's a negative wealth effect. So where do you see employment incomes going uh, in the context of course, additionally of the disruption being caused by coming from outside? Yeah, yeah,
You know, in our case, in the case of India, um, I mean, as far as this budget, you mentioned the budget, as far as this budget is concerned, the biggest uh, benefit or highlight of the budget was the income tax concession given by the finance minister to the middle class. And the prime minister has gone around saying that this is going to help the Indian economy, boost consumption, this, that, and the other. I'm not so sure, and there are many others in the economic field who are not very sanguine about this one particular step leading to reviving the declining consumption in our economy. We all are aware that the largest number of our people live in villages, in the rural areas. And unless we do something to revive demand in the rural economy, amongst the rural people, India is not going to see a revival of demand. And again, I'll go back to the example of our time, Mr. Vajpayee's time, why did we start on all those infrastructure projects? Of course, they were
Rural
needed.
infrastructure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, including rural infrastructure,
Yeah.
the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, for instance.
Yeah.
And, we did it because they were needed, but also because they had a multiplier effect on the economy.
Yeah.
You have very clearly, a, you have a choice. The choice is that you put money directly in the pockets of the people in order to boost demand, right?
Yeah.
The other is to make them earn that money by creating projects which will give
Yeah.
employment. So you create employment, put money in people's pockets, then they'll go to the market and spend it, and consumption will pick up. Now,
Yeah.
we have reached a very peculiar situation, Venuji, in our economy, where there is no money anywhere. What
Yeah.
has happened to all the money? You look
Yeah.
at the savings rate, domestic savings rate, they have
Gone
not
on.
risen.
Yeah. Two
They
percentage
have
points of
declined.
GDP.
Yeah, domestic savings. And now Reserve Bank has to come out and put, I don't know, 1 lakh crore or 2 lakh crore in the economy in order to create liquidity. Why
Yeah.
has suddenly liquidity vanished? And then I'll go back to the connection of the dollar rupee uh, uh, issue. The point is, the dollar, everyone is saying, will reach rupee will it will reach 100 rupees to a dollar as soon as RBI lets go and does not interfere in the market.
Yeah.
The dollar rupee equation today is completely controlled by the
Yeah.
market interventions of the RBI.
Yeah.
Now, what is happening is, that is my understanding, that the RBI is mopping up all the rupees which are being converted into dollars by the foreign institutional investors. Then that money is going out of the market to the RBI. And
Yeah.
that is why we have such a shortage of liquidity in our economy.
Yeah.
Nobody has any money. So
Yeah.
how will consumption take place if
Yeah.
there is no money in our economy?
Yeah.
So this
True.
is the problem that we are facing, and the budget, I'm sorry, has not helped in alleviating that issue. The second point which I'd like to make is, we are making much of the fact that we are going to grow by 6.5% or whatever, but India, as you are aware, needs a growth rate of at least 8%.
Yeah.
The World Bank has, our IMF has said recently, 7.8% is what
Yeah.
we know
Yeah.
need.
Yeah.
So, if we grow at anything less than that, then all this concept or dream of Vikasit Bharat and this, that, and the other is just going to remain a pipe dream.
Yeah. So, sir, coming back to the impact of tariffs, uh, what do you think the most vulnerable segment of India's population, as you said, is the rural population? Rural wages have been stagnant uh, for a long period, for 7, 8 years, 9 years. There's been slight pickup in recent months, but very marginal, not meaningful. Now, uh, if India were to if Trump were to impose reciprocal tariff, or threaten to impose reciprocal tariff and make India drop duties dramatically on agriculture produce, uh, what will happen to uh, the vulnerable agriculture sector? To what will happen to farmers' incomes? And most importantly, what will happen to Mr. Modi's uh, this food grain stocking program, food security program, where he gives free food to 80 crore people? Now, the US has been challenging that also, and I'm sure in the negotiations it will come up. Trump will push hard on that, on the subsidy element, and the way it, in their view, interferes with market pricing of agriculture produce. So, sir, how will this? Do you think that this vulnerability is totally exposed now that India is agreed to negotiate on a almost on a product to product basis? It appears to be, whereas some economists are saying that India should not get into this trap of negotiating with Trump on a line to line tariff. In fact, it should stick to some principles. For instance, principles of WTO under which India can keep agricultural tariffs up to the bound level. So, is India surrendering that? I mean, I'm coming back to your surrender mudra. so is India surrendering that?
You are aware of the fact that India has waged a continuous battle in the WTO as far as agricultural produce is concerned.
Yeah.
Throughout, in order to protect our agriculturists' interests, India has been in the forefront of fighting in the WTO against any measure which will deny us that right, not only to help agriculture, but also the consumer through these food grain stocking and distribution channels. Now, there is absolutely no need for India, therefore, to depart from this policy and surrender bilaterally before the US.
Yeah.
If India were to make any unwanted concession on tariffs to the US on agricultural produce, it will be a terrible day for agriculture in India. I remember, I'll just give you one example. I remember when we were reducing tariffs, which I thought was in our own interest to create a lower cost economy.
Yeah.
I was warned by very eminent people that the US was sitting on mountains of chicken legs.
Yeah.
Chicken legs, and they were all stored in the Middle East somewhere.
Yeah.
And the moment we give a concession, they'll all come to India and ruin our poultry industry, which was
in fact, we have 100% duty on chicken legs today.
Yeah,
so there is a fear that it might be brought down. They might.
So
the US may push for it.
And I agreed with this and did nothing at all to permit import of such products into India. And we had a mechanism in place where we monitored every import of every sensitive product, and we had a list of that. Every sensitive product every month to see whether our industry was getting hurt or not. So our commitment is to global trade, global free trade, but our commitment is also to our own people, our own industry, our own agriculture. And therefore, whenever our interests are being compromised, we must be able to stand up.
Yeah.
Now, if we have this surrender mudra, then we will not stand up.
Yeah. And sir, finally, should India, in this situation, should India team up with European Union and others who are also at the receiving end of the US policies and do principle-based negotiations within the WTO framework? At least push for it.
We should have reached out already to the UK and to
EU,
the Europeans, EU. Our foreign minister has called on the British Prime Minister. I hope these issues would have
perhaps even China.
Of course. I mean, you know that there is a history of India-China cooperation, collaboration in the WTO. So why not?
Yeah.
Of course, we should do it with China. So China, European Union, UK, even the
Africa,
Russians,
Latin America.
Yeah, wherever there is a commonality of interest, India should reach out. In fact, in any other situation, India would have been leading this movement.
Yeah, there is a feeling that India is also surrendering its leadership of the South, as you said.
We can't.
Part of surrender mudra.
And in this case, not only the South, the so-called South, but also, as we were discussing, European Union, UK. India should be in the lead, but India will be in the lead if we give up our surrender mudra. If we are in surrender mudra, then nobody is going to take us seriously.
And sir, finally, just 30 seconds. I want you to answer this last question. Is it imperative today for the opposition to demand, or for the government itself, suo moto, to call for a special parliament session to discuss this? Isn't this
Yes.
serious enough to be discussed in a bipartisan sort of way?
Government has not reached out to the opposition. Government will not want it to come up even in a regular session. The question of a special session, as far as the government is concerned, does not arise. But I agree with you that it is the opposition which must demand that there should be a special session in which we should discuss these global political and economic and trade developments, because these are going to impact us very, very severely in the days to come.
Thank you, Mr. Yashwant Sinha, for talking to us and giving us
Thank you.
your precious time.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.